Whenever someone brings up ancient Athens, you get this picture of enlightened men in togas discussing the nature of the soul. They invented democracy, philosophy, theater, basically everything that makes a Western civ class either fascinating or a mandatory nap time. This was the golden age of Pericles, the cradle of civilization, and it was genuinely brilliant for about 15% of the population. For everyone else, it was less about groundbreaking political theory and more about hoping your rich owner didn't have a sudden temper tantrum. Athens wasn't the birthplace of freedom for all. It was a members-only country club with extremely strict admission policies and a very high body count. So, who got the golden ticket to this exclusive democracy party? First, you had to be a man, obviously. Second, you had to be freeborn. Third, you had to have completed your military training. And after 451 BC, thanks to Pericles himself, you needed to prove that both your mother and your father were Athenian citizens. This cut down the guest list considerably. Out of a population hovering around 250,000 people, the best estimates suggest only 30,000 to 40,000 men actually qualified. That's not a government by the people. That's a government by a very specific self-congratulatory fraternity that just happened to run an entire city-state. It's like a modern tech company's board of directors making decisions for the entire planet. Then you had the metics, the resident foreigners. These were the skilled craftsmen, merchants, and bankers who kept the Athenian economy from collapsing into a pile of olive pits. They were vital. They paid a special poll tax, the mitoikion, just for the privilege of living there. They were expected to serve in the military if called upon. But political rights? The right to own land? The right to speak in the assembly? Absolutely not. You could live your entire life in Athens, contribute more to its wealth than most citizens, and die a foreigner with fewer rights than the laziest citizen-born layabout. They were essentially permanent residents on a work visa with no hope of ever getting a green card. And what about the women, who made up roughly half the free population? Their public existence was, to put it mildly, discouraged. A respectable Athenian woman's life goal was to be so anonymous that no one outside her family knew her name. She was passed from the legal control of her father to that of her husband, a perpetual minor whose main purpose was to produce legitimate male heirs to inherit the family property. The orator Demosthenes summed it up beautifully. We have courtesans for pleasure, concubines for the daily care of the body, but wives to bear us legitimate children. So while the men were out inventing political science, the women were confined to the house, legally barred from public life, and considered intellectually and morally deficient. A golden age of patriarchy, perhaps. The entire glorious enterprise of philosophy, art, and democratic debate was powered by the single largest group in Athens: slaves. It's hard to get exact numbers, but some estimates put the slave population at over 100,000, potentially outnumbering the free citizens. Aristotle, a man of staggering intellect, famously called a slave an ensouled tool, basically a hammer that breathes. These tools were captured in war, kidnapped by pirates, or born into servitude. They worked in the terrifying silver mines of Laurion, a near-certain death sentence, or as domestic servants, or on farms. The leisure time that allowed Athenian men to sit around and ponder the good life was directly stolen from people who had no life at all. Athenian democracy didn't just coexist with slavery, it was fundamentally dependent on it. Athens' democratic ideals didn't exactly extend to their foreign policy either. After the Persian Wars, they formed the Delian League, a defensive alliance of Greek city-states to keep Persia at bay. A noble idea, except Athens quickly decided that leader meant boss and alliance meant empire. The League's treasury was originally on the neutral island of Delos. Then, in 454 BC, Athens moved the entire treasury to Athens, arguing it was safer there. By an amazing coincidence, this safe money was then used to fund a massive public building program, including the Parthenon. They were literally using their allies' protection money to beautify their own city. It was less an alliance and more of a geopolitical protection racket. What happened if a member of this League of Equals decided they didn't want to play anymore? Athens would send its navy, the most powerful in the Aegean, to provide some aggressive encouragement. When the island of Naxos tried to leave, Athens besieged it, knocked down its walls, and took its fleet. When Samos rebelled, the Samians were crushed and forced to pay a massive indemnity. The historian Thucydides, who wasn't exactly a foreign critic, gives us the chilling Melian dialogue. The Athenians basically tell the neutral Melians to submit or be destroyed, stating bluntly, "The strong do what they can, and the weak suffer what they must." This is the official foreign policy of the city that gave us the concept of civic freedom. The irony is so thick you could carve a statue out of it. Even within the citizen body, their legal system had some quirks. They pioneered trial by jury, which is great, except their juries could be massive, sometimes over 500 people. This made trials less about legal precedent and more about which speaker was the most persuasive or who had the most friends in the crowd. This environment gave rise to sycophants, men who made a living bringing often baseless lawsuits against the rich, hoping for a settlement or a cut of the fine. And then there was ostracism, where citizens could vote to exile any politician for 10 years without any charge or trial, simply because he was getting too powerful or annoying. It was democracy as a high-stakes popularity contest, and the losers got kicked out of the country. The man whose name is synonymous with this golden age, Pericles, perfectly embodies the whole contradiction. In his famous funeral oration, he paints a picture of Athens as a city open to the world, a beacon of freedom and tolerance. He boasts that Athens is the school of Hellas, a model for all others. It's a beautiful speech. This is the same Pericles who tightened the citizenship laws, who moved the Delian treasury, and who pursued the aggressive imperial policy. In another speech recorded by Thucydides, he drops the act completely. He admits to the Athenian assembly that the empire they rule is now like a tyranny. To take it perhaps was wrong, but to let it go is unsafe. At least he had the self-awareness to know he was a hypocrite. So, was it all a lie? Not exactly. The ideas born in Athens, that citizens should rule themselves, that law should be public, that debate is essential, were genuinely revolutionary. But they built this incredible machine of civic participation and then put up a massive fence around it, powered by slavery and funded by imperialism. The exclusion wasn't a bug, it was a feature. The freedom of the few was directly dependent on the subjugation of the many. Looking back at Athens is a fantastic reminder that a society can produce unparalleled cultural genius and still be built on a foundation of breathtaking hypocrisy. It's a reminder that ideals are easy to state, but much, much harder to live up to, especially when there's profit and power on the line. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more historical insights. Thanks for watching, nerds!